Okay, then I think we are good to go.
Fine, madam.
Yes, okay. Then good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you all for the online NET GSAT mentoring on lecture series 2021, organized by Alumni Association, Department of English and Comparative Literary Studies, Saurashtra University, Rajkot. Dealing with the Indian writings and English in India. We lastly had our session on pre-independence writing in English. Now today we have a session on post-independence poetry, right, in Indian writings, and we have with us Dr. Bhavdeep Chavda, who has done his doctorate on the same topic, and at the same time presently he is working with Arts College Gadra. We would really like to, sir, have an enriching session with you, and without wasting much of your time, let me hand over the session to our expert of the day. So please, Dr. Bhavdeep Chavda, kindly take over the session and lead the things. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, madam. Uh, Dear friends, today we are going to discuss about post-independence Indian poetry in English. Now, this post-independence Indian poetry in English, it has some specific reasons to be called in this way. There are many people who call this entity in a different way. I would like to begin with the nomenclature thing, the identity of this, what we call uh, uh, a milieu, a kind of milieu, because say before independence many people used to call this kind of literature Anglo-Indian literature. In Anglo-Indian literature there used to be English writers writing on Indian subjects, Indian themes, Indian context, right, uh, dealing with Indian subjects, Indian characters, Indian stories. Later on, Eurasians like Henry Derozio and others also joined this, and it was called Anglo-Indian literature. The next one is Indo-Anglian literature. Now, there is a kind of inversion in the name because after the independence, if you observe, there are hardly what we call it uh, English writers writing on Indian themes, on Indian characters. So we are having now more larger part of Indian writers, right? So Indo-Anglian literature. Then it since 1960s it is called Indian English literature. No Anglian Anglo person or Anglian literature. So it is simply Indian English literature. The term is in use since 1960s, and Sahitya Academy has officially endorsed this term in 1980s. As this is a language-oriented literature, it is called Indian English literature. So in this continuation, it is called, it can be called Indian literature in English, Indian writing in English, Indian fiction in English, Indian poetry in English, and Indian drama in English. The last one, which is valid in both the ways, that is Indian poetry in English. So that is why I have called this part of literature as Indian poetry in English, but post-independence, not pre-independence. Or one can also call it Indo-Anglian poetry. Sorry. Talking about the classification, see, like history of British or English literature, we don't have uh, uh, typical classification of this literature. There are people who call this literature as 19th century English literature in India or Indian literature in English. Then there is another phase that is pre-independence. Then another phase is known as post-independence. So broadly speaking, there are these three phases known or largely in is in these phases are in usage. But uh, in the previous lecture also, Dr. Chala sir has mentioned about Makrand Paranjape's classification, which I have brought here. Paranjape distinguishes, classifies this literature, Indian writing in English, as in this way. He divides it into four phases. The first phase, colonialism, that begins from 1825 and runs up to 1900 because there was colonies, British colony at that time. Second phase is known as nationalism. Now that nationalism is typically for the nationalistic movement was there, freedom fight was there. There were people like Gandhi, uh, uh, Sardar Patel, Subhash Chandra Bose, and so many, so many. So this phase of 1900 to 1947 is known as nationalism. The third phase is known as the modernism. Now, please understand this phase that we are going to discuss today specifically 1950 to 1980. Now, this period is of only 30 years, but I personally believe since the day Indian writing started, incepted in English, uh, this period is the produced the best of literature. So modernism from 1950 to 1980, it produced the best literature so far. And then phase 4 is known as the postmodernism, or it can also be called neo-colonialism or post-colonialism, that is 1980s onwards. I hope this is clear with these four phases, which are specifically given by Makrand Paranjape, which I believe is the very apt classification. Now let us try to understand the differences between pre-independence Indian poets and post-independence Indian poets. Here are the list of pre-independence Indian poets and post-independence Indian poets. You can see, sorry, you can see Henry Derozio, Kasi Prasad Ghosh, Michael Madhusudan Dutt, and Toru Dutt, who incepted Indian poetry in English. Now, I would like to bring to your notice the first Indian poetry written in English. If there is any first Indian poetry, then it is Sonnet to Night. Please mark this. Sonnet to Night is a sonnet written by Henry Derozio, which was published in 1822 in India Gazette. Okay, so this was the first ever written poem, published poem by an Indian. However, Derozio was a Eurasian, but by heart, from his ideologies, he was more Indian. Then there are many writers who are writing during the pre-independence Indian. If we discuss about the way they wrote poetry, specifically pre-independence Indian poets, it was romantic. See, during 19th century, even if you try to see every literature written immediately after the romantic period of English, wherever an English writing attempted throughout the world, there was romantic influence on it. So what happened? Wherever English was written, there was a romantic influence. So that literature falls somehow, somewhere, more or less romantic. Let us discuss about Indian poetry during that period, pre-independence. It was based on mythologies. There were characters like Savitri Bai, Aurobindo, even Savitri Bai Torudat. So that kind of writing was there. It was more idealistic. You see the Derosio's writing. Derosio wrote a poem which was completely on Sati Pratha, to demolish the Sati Pratha in 1828. It was nationalistic. Michael Madhusudan wrote a wonderful poem for keeping nationalistic approach in mind. So these all poems, so far 1950 or till the independence, were under the influence of British poets. While the post-independence Indian poets, they were more realistic than a romantic. They used to write in present, in a everyday life of people, in a simple language, in a language of common people. So you way romantics used to write, but they were more realistic. They were not writing in a fancy. They were not promoting imagination the way romantics used to do. It was more concrete, secular, democratic, and the poetry especially was disillusionment, full of disillusionment. There were identity crises. There were poetry written evoking Indianness, alienation, and exile. Such themes were there in post-independence Indian poetry. Even there was a loss of values, not lost, but loss of values, breaking of family traditions. What had happened after the independence, my dear friends? Uh, People thought that India after independence will go towards the first world country. But instead of looking for a optimistic vision, people become more poor. There were issues of poverty and many other issues where if we study the history of post-independence in a, sociology, will realize that India was becoming entering into a third world country rather than going to us upwards. Uh, like pre-independence poetry, post-independence poetry was under the influences of many things. Typically, modernistic, or modernism poets. These influences were in manner of expressions. In manner of expressions, there were 2 points. One was choice of language, how what kind of language to be used, because largely the audience was not knowing or aware of having idea about English language or new English language. Secondly, flow of rhythm. In what rhythm they should write, what rhythm they should. It is very much I have studied uh, influence studies, comparative literature. Let me tell you one more thing over here, that any poem, whatever poet is writing, that is under influence by of one or the another person. Any poetry cannot escape from its predecessor. So obviously there will be an influence of a predecessor, be it romantic, be it modernistic. Second one is there are modernist writers like G.M. Hopkins, W.B. Yeats, C.S. Eliot, W.H. Auden, Dylan Thomas, Wallace Stevens. They taught these post-Indian poets to write their poetry in a serious way, to take their art seriously, because most of the poets were not 100% committed as a poet professionally. They were doing they were engaged in some other kind of works as well. There there is a very prominent influence one can mark of Shelley W.B. Yeats on A.K. Ramanujan. One Indian post-independence Indian poet has said that modernist sensibility in India owes chiefly chiefly to the influence of Eliot, Pound, Lewis, and Richards. So, post-independence India poetry written in this way under the influences of modernistic writers. Let us try to understand the characteristics. There are not much characteristics given, but on the basis of the poems, we can identify few. The first one is rejection of past. That we will come to know from the very first poem, a collection of poems, that is A Time to Change, written in 1952 by Nissim Ezekiel, where the title itself says that it's a time to change. That means rejection to past. They wanted to discontinue themselves from the tradition their predecessors used to write. So they ignored the traditional values. There were poetry written on the breaking down of family traditions. So what happened as a result? They felt alienated, and loneliness was there in that poetry because they were cut off from they were cutting off themselves from their own tradition, and they were not able to live up to the expectations of the modern or foreign, a new tradition they were not able to establish. They opposed idealism and romanticism. Unlike predecessors, they wanted to write in a different way. They did not want to escape in their poetry. They did not want any kind of flights of fancy and imagination. They wanted to write whatever was there in a clear, hard, and unsentimental voice. They purely believed in secular muse. They had their own mysticism and other worldly ideologies. Right? They used to write on various aspects, but they had their own value dialogue. Other characteristics that I have come across in different history books. This is the characteristics mentioned in one of the history books, that is tremendous earnestness. These poets were very tremendously earnest. Exploration of ends and means. They were confessional outspokesmen. They used to speak, they used to confess whatever has happened. Typically, if you take the poetry of Kamala Das, you take the poetry of Nissim Ezekiel, take the poetry of A.K. Ramanujan. They used to confess, they used to write on themselves, they used to express themselves and their thoughts, their ideas in a very confessional ways. Something has happened, something new was there. So post-independence Indian poetry in English, uh, many one of the paper is on new poets. The paper identifies it as a new poets, that is written by Iyengar. In the history book, you can find new poets. Now, new poets means what? It has many meanings. New means future poetry as well. While if you take the poetry written during the same period in France, then the new poets meant the poetry of protest. So these new poets that we are going to study were modern in terms of ideologies. They were following English modernism. These poets were mostly bilingual. They used to write in their mother tongue as well as they used to write in English. Also, these poets largely were born in 1920s or 1930s or 1940s. There are some poets you will come across, and we will see that there are examples who born even in post independence. So what they did, they tried to write in Indian sensibility. This poetry somehow was intellectual. It was based on their irony. There was irony, satire, symbolism. These all things made poetry very intellectual. What technique they used to write, what kind of meter they used to follow. Then here is the answer that they mostly the poetry was written in free verse, free rhythm. They used to write in precise and clear manner. Sarcastic, precise and clear manner of a speaker in a sarcastic tone. As I said, confessional poetry, and this period of time, if you say specifically 1950 to 1980, was the best period so far for Indian poetry in English. So we'll come to first poet, Shiv K. Kumar. Was born in 1921 and died recently 4 years back in 2017. He was born in Lahore at the British time. He won Sahitya Academy Award in 1987 for his book, a collection of books known as Trap Falls in the Sky. He was awarded Padma Bhushan in 2001. He tried to express Indian sensibility as in his poems Indian Women, where he wrote on the predicament of Indian women, on rural and rustic life of women, and their sufferings. Likewise, there is a Kali, another poem, and Wool Gathering is another popular poem, which is part of many syllabi of many universities. The next poet is Nizam Ezekiel. Now, Nizam Ezekiel is a Jewish poet who lived in Bombay. He was again another Sahitya Academy awarded poet. He was awarded this award in 1983 for his poem Latter Day Psalms. Latter Day Psalms is totally religious poem where he discussed about faith. If you study these poems, you'll understand that what Ezekiel tries to say is that with changing time, faith should change. He's one of the most famous poet, also known as the father of modern Indian poetry. He has largely written on his marginal experiences in India, especially the urban lifestyle. He employed sexuality as a metaphor. He edited a very popular journal of that time, Quest. Also edited Poetry India. He has also written an essay on entitled Poet, Lover, and Bird Watcher. Now, in this essay, what he says, if you can juxtapose this essay with William Shakespeare's Poet, Lover, and Lunatic. William Shakespeare gives his opinions on these three, poet, lover, and lunatic, in his drama As You Like It. And here, Nizam Ezekiel puts his views on poet, lover, and birdwatcher. He says, likewise, a lover cannot force his beloved to love him back. So, birdwatcher cannot force his space, otherwise, a bird would fly away. In the same way, a good poet never writes poetry in a very hastily. He waits for the words to come. So here's given a phrase. There is a phrase which is quite popular in criticism of Indian writing. which says best poet waits for words. Ezekiel has written a very philosophical uh, poem, Night of Scorpion, in which a Scorpio bites a person, and villagers runs towards a religious person. So there is a philosophy, and there are views on scientific discoveries and religious discoveries. There is another poem, his quite popular poems like Goodbye Party to Miss Puspa, Background Casually, Enterprise Secularism. In Background Casually, he writes his experience as a Jew in India. In Enterprise Secularism, he discusses the very hard, very arduous journey of life, and at the end he says how worth it is. Now this is the question which was asked in net examination 2012: who has written Naipaul's India? This is, sorry, there is a typo, India and Mine. Does anyone know the answer? Who has written Naipaul's India and Mine? It was none other than the Nizam Ezekiel. It was Nizam Ezekiel who wrote this uh, uh, essay. Now you may wonder, who is Naipaul then? At that time, was the Naipaul there? You might have heard about V.S. Naipaul. The same Naipaul he is talking about, where he has mingled his views and Naipaul's views about India. The another poet, Dom Morais, who is very famous as a poet from a very younger age, again a Jewish poet. He won the Hawthornden Prize in 1958. Is a Sedelius apt to Eliot, Auden, and Spender. Again, he was a confessional cast. He has written many poems on confession. It is said that whatever he touched, it turned into a finishing art. He has written his autobiography. That is also important. That sometimes this kind of questions can be asked. My son's father. See the way he has written autobiography. My son's father. Obviously, it is himself. The next poet is Jayanta Mahapatra, who was born in 1928 and he is still living. Now, if you try to put or make a set of poets in post-independence Indian poetry, you may come across that there are you can simply make two sets of four poets. So you can say contemporary quartet, where you can include Nizam Ezekiel, Jayant Mahapatra, A.K. Ramanujan, and we'll come to the next one. At that time, I'll let you know. So this is Jayant Mahapatra, who was a bilingual. Again, he used to write in Oriya. First Indian English poet to win Sahitya Academy Award in 1981 for his poem Relationship. He was also he awarded many awards in 2009, and some of them are Ellen Tate Poetry Prize, Sark Literary Award, and Padma Shri, the fourth highest award in India, a civilian award in India. A landscape and social poet. He used to write Landscape of Odisha. He also wrote social aspects on social aspects, used surreal and disturbing psychological mental elements to evoke social metaphysical traumas. He edited Chandrabag. His poems include Hunger, Dawn at Puri, Grandfather, Evening Landscape by the River, and Total Solar Eclipse. These are the major poems. The first one, Hunger. Hunger is a poem about a protagonist uh, wandering at on a beach, hungry for sexual requirement, relationship, and he was approached by a fisherman, and he pimped his own daughter due to poverty. The protagonist was shaken up with this experience. The next poem, Dawn at Puri. Now the poem is about the uh, fire being burned on the beach. Now this he where he reflects on life, death, women, their sufferings, and somehow he connects it with his own mother who is growing old. The next one is Grandfather, who was notorious for connected with famine. He wrote a poem on it. Evening Landscape by the River. He wrote about the landscape of the state. Total Solar Eclipse again is a natural scenery poem. Next one is A.K. Ramanujan. Was born in 1929 and 1993. He was born in Mysore. Was a Kannada speaker and was writing in both the languages, English and Kannada. You may consider him as the most talented of new poets. He has taught at University of Chicago, Harvard, and so on. He is very much has a very peculiar style where he has amalgamate traditional and modern values. This is very Sangam, which is not Sangam in a Kannada language, is a kind of tradition when you mix up these two values. One is internal, another one is external, like internal values and external values. He has written an essay uh, entitled as "Is There Indian Way of Thinking?" Now, in this essay, he has been to many countries, and he has seen his father as a well-versed in English, well-educated, well-literate in English. However, he used to put a turban on his head, used to wear dhoti, the traditional outfit of India. So he used to ponder on it about how we can maintain both the values, like Indian by heart, so and modern by outer world, touch finished by outer world British education or English education. His most of poems were expatriating, remembering of the past and colonial identities. His poems, there are collections of his poems. One is Rider, which was published by Oxford University Press. There are many poets in this time whose works was published by Oxford University. In Strider, there is a poem looking for a cousin on a swing, where he writes about his family. See, most of his poems mostly are on his family members, relations. Okay. So first one, looking for a cousin on a swing, is a kind of nostalgic poem which he recollects about his cousin to come and to go for a swing. And he also muses that gone time is not going to come back ever. Another collection of poems, or you can say vachanas, is speaking of Shiva. There are the poems like Small Scale Reflections on a Great House, where he discusses very small things. He also discusses in the same poem. He brings uh, issues of handcraft works of native people, and how Britishers destroyed their business. Love Poem for a Wife is another popular poem written by him. He has also translated You Are Anant Murthy's Sanskara from Kannada. Now, this Sanskara is a book on Indian caste system. It's a very popular book which he translated into English. Uh, Ramanujan has been very fond of folk literature. He himself being a folklorist, studied literature and folklore very deeply. The next poet is P. Lal. Mostly we know him as Writers Workshop, who organizes Writers Workshop during 1960s and 70s. Pushottam Lal, that's his full name, but he is majority known as P. Lal. That Writers Workshop, he organized many workshops and gradually it became a company which produced many poets. He is known as the Eliot figure as a poet. There are certain questions raised during this workshop also, but I think due to the time limit, we should ignore it for time being. Next one is it's not Arjun, it's Arun Kolatkar. There is again typo. He led a reclusive life. His best known work is Jajuri, which won Commonwealth Poetry Prize in 1977. Also, he was awarded Sahitya Academy Award for Marathi language for his work Bijki Wahi in 2005. The next poet, another T.S. Eliot kind of figure, as a critic, it is R. Parthasarathi. Was born in 1934. He mostly wrote in post-coloniality. He himself was Tamil, lived in US, and extreme austerity in style can be traced in his poems. His famous poetry books, the first one is Rough Passage, which had three parts. The first one is Exile, second one is Trial, and the last one is Homecoming. And the next one is Poetry from Leeds. Then comes the first female poet, poetess of this period. You can say Sri Kamala Das is the major poet, not only in a nation, but internationally as well. She has also written a lot of on post-coloniality. She has been confessional poet. She has been a feminist, and poetry was in her blood as her mother and grandfather were poets in Malayalam. She was a bilingual poet. She wrote in Malayalam and in English. Whenever she attempted poetry in Malayalam, she used her pen name Madhvi Katti. She is very powerful and bold in style whenever she wrote. But one can notice her boldness of style and powerful writing in her own autobiography known as My Story. Later, she converted to Islam and changed her name Kamala Surya after the death of her husband. And also she announced that she will marry her Muslim lover. Her first collection of poems were Summer in Calcutta, where she has written an introduction, The Sunshine Cat, My Grandmother's House, Dance of the Eunuchs, The Old Playhouse, etc. She has express a post-colonial writer's experience of two cultures in her poetry. R. Parthasarathy was the fourth poet, along with A.K. Ramanujan and Nizam Ezekiel. Now we are coming to Parsi quartet, in which we are having first one is Keki and Daruwala, who has been an IPS officer, poet, and short story writer. He also won Sahitya Academy Award in 1984 for his poem Keeper of the Dead. He has been awarded Padma Shri in 2014, used very violent and surreal imageries in his poems like Fire Him or Hawk. The second Parsi poet is Adil Jusawala, who also won Sahitya Academy Award in 2014 for his poetry Trying to Say Goodbye. His other poems are Approaching Santa Cruz Airport, Bombay, Public Hospital. These are his famous poems. The third in this uh, uh, quartet poets, Kedi Katrak. However, he is not much known as a poet, but he has attracted a talent of pool, including Anil Kapoor, Amitabh Bachchan, and he was known as Indian Parsi advertising personality. His collections include two collections, A Journal of the Way, Diversions by the Wayside. Both were published in 1969. Then his poems were published in other anthologies. Fourth and the last one, but very important of Parsi quartet is G.V. Patel. He has been a poet, playwright, and painter. He was also he practiced physician as well. Also note, he has been associated with Green Movement. His poems on killing a tree, forensic medicines, squirrels in Washington were quite popular poems. Next poet is A.K. Mehrotra. We all know him as a poet or as a writer of history book. He has been a professor of English at University of Allahabad. He is very illustriously academician, edited major textbook Indian literature in English. His poetry mostly was on postmodernism, and surreal imagery is very used. Here is a list of his other famous poems. Next one is Agha Shahid Ali. He has been a Kashmiri writer living in USA. He wrote Book of Ghazals. It is entitled as Call Me Ishmael Tonight, a book of ghazals, which was published in 2003. Now this can be a tricky question. His other collections of poems were Bone Sculpture, The Half-Inch Himalayas, The Wolf's Postscript to Little Red Riding Hood has been included in many syllabi of many universities. His another popular poem is I See Chill in My Rear View Mirror. So we are concluding very soon. Mina Alexander, the second women poet, she has been having a hybrid identity. She has been Malayali, Syrian, and Christian. She lived in Allahabad, Sudan, and New York. She has been a distinguished professor in English, known for lyrical writings of immigrants, experiences, and violent experiences of the borders. There are other Her famous poets is a trap, a house of a thousand doors, rose silk, illiterate heart. Out of these four, rose silk and illiterate heart were quite more popular. The next one is Eunice D'Souza, who is a poet, critic, and novelist. Born and grew up in Pune in a Goan Catholic family. So obviously his mother tongue is English. Her, by the way, you don't go with her name. It's not a male writer. She is a female writer. She has written about women in Dutch painting, ways of belonging, selected and new poems. These are the collections of her poems. A necklace of skulls, learned from the almond leaf. The next one is Vikram Seth. Vikram Seth was born in 1952, and I think we know him more as a novelist, but his first novel was written in verse. That is The Golden Gate. Published in 1988, he received Sahitya Akademi Award for the same. His poetry are mappings, The Tale of Melon City, The Humble Administrator's Garden, All You Woo Sleep Tonight, Beastly Tales, Three Chinese Poets, The Frog and the Nightingale, Summer Requiem, a book of poems. There are some other women poets like Monica Verma. She translated verse. She has done a verse translation of Gita Govind. Another women poet is Ira Day, Margaret Chatterjee, who has been a teacher of philosophy, Tabji Mukherjee, Ambapali, Tilottama Rajan, and some other important factors which would be useful keeping NET examination in mind is Furtado. His work, The Center, is a kind of imitation of Prufrock. Then Pradeep Sen, Dev Kumar Das. Now these two, Dev Kumar Das and Pradeep Sen, they have contributed a lot in Writers Workshop. Dev Kumar Das is more known as a Eliot's spiritual child. Then there is a P.K. Saha, Shankar Mokshi Punekar, who taught English literature and also done PhD on WB Yeats. British Nandi, Lawrence Bentelman, G.S. Sharat Chandra. These are the other important names. That's it for today from my side. I hope I could keep the time.
Yes, sir. You have done the best timing, that is with 50 minutes exact with the lecturing. And now we have opened the session for the queries. Those who have the doubts, queries, want to ask something, kindly just put on your questions in the chat box.
Good evening, ma'am and sir.
Yes.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, I have one question regarding the Kamala Das. As you said that Kamala Das, she has expressed her experience in two cultures. So, can you elaborate that which were that two culture name and how she elaborated herself?
Two cultures in terms of. Can you please mute your mic?
Of course, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Two cultures. She has written the experiences of writers who were between two cultures. Now, these two cultures were the postmodern and modern, keeping their state level, whatever state they belong to. So she was Malayali. So her Malayalam culture was also there. Now, A.K. Ramanujan was more successful because he had a tradition in his own native culture of Sangam, where he used to mix up, where two things mix up and dissolve in each other. Now that kind of experiences were there with all the poets. And about these two poets, these two cultures, we can understand it more aptly. I hope I could uh, respond to you correctly.
Thank you so much, sir.
No, thank you.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Rahul.
Sir, I have a query.
Yes, please.
Sir, you have discussed all the major poets, and therefore poets like Jayant Mahapatra are individual ones. We have to prepare them from net examination point of view. So,
Mhm.
can we categorize them as the subaltern literature as well? That they are categorized in that field also?
Can be, can be. See, there are many poets who were critics, who were novelists, who were short story writers. So certainly we can classify it according to their works as well.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I have two questions. One
Yes.
question is that I would like to know that influence of the British writers or other American writers on our this modern or rather postmodern Indian poets. Second thing, I would like to know about the writers' workshop. Were there any writers who have come out from that workshop? They have established themselves.
Okay. Thank you for good questions. These are really good questions. The first question is about the influences. As I said earlier also, that if you study in a literary terms, you will read about the influence studies, and you'll find that Abraham says that no poetry can escape from the influence of its predecessor. So these poets, I think you used two terms in your question, the modern and postmodern. Uh, Here, let me tell you, when we are discussing post-independence writers, we include both modern and postmodern, because immediately, as soon as independence uh, happened, immediately we were having the kind of modernist ideologies. We were trying to make new poetries. But in you can say from 1980s onwards, even Nizim Ezekiel says in one of his interview, that interview is available online on YouTube, where he says about that India had modernism from 50 to 80s. 80 onwards, we entered to postmodernism or new kind of age. In both the ages, these poets were under the influences of British as well as American poets. Okay, the second question. Second question was about. Uh, can you please repeat it?
Writers
Yes,
workshop.
sir.
Lal Writers Workshop. Uh, See, there were what Pilal used to do. He used to invite writers, poets, to participate in the workshop, and they used to brainstorm on certain questions, certain ideas. Now there was a question of whether English as a language is sufficient to express Indian sensibility. So there are different opinions were given, were expressed. So that kind of criticism used to happen, brainstorming used to happen in the workshop. Also, later on, this writers workshop was converted into a kind of company which published many poets, many poetry. Even budding poets were able to send their poems. I hope this makes things clear.
Yes, yes, thank you. But still, I wanted to know that some of the names from which Indian poets get the influences and how
There,
they have
see,
made changes according to Indian needs.
it was not Indian needs. If you're asking specifically language oriented, then there the questions like Pradeep Sen, that he said that undoubtedly if uh, English language can express Hebrew culture, other language culture, then certainly it has potential to uh, uh, express Indian culture, Indianness. Right. And there are this. I cannot give the exact names right now because there are many. You can take the R. Parthasarthi. You can take the example of A.K. Ramanujan. They have written uh, their works, poetry, even criticism in a writer's workshop as a book, writer's workshop. In that book, they have their own papers. Also, there are poetries written by poets. But if you want to know the specific name, then it will be difficult to tell you right now.
Okay, sir. Sir, we have a question in the chat box by Anay Bhatt.
Yeah.
And the question is something like getting your opinion. What would have been the state of Indian writing in English or Indian literature in general if we wouldn't have been colonized?
Uh, then there won't be uh, literature in English from Indian point of view because it was Britishers who brought this language, right? There is no chance of poetry in English. I mean, it would have come later. I mean, perhaps we would be now having Henry Derozio instead of 200 years back.
Yes, like I mean, this is something that is what would have been if we could have changed the history, something like that. But
Yeah,
yes,
that's the thing. That is very. There are many possibilities. This is kind of supposition.
yes.
Suppose there is no Gujarati language, what would happen? What language we would be using? Now that is, one cannot say very surely, but I can say language would have entered. English language certainly would have entered because its logic and science is very powerful. So
Yes.
that would be uh, can be
In
thought of.
Yes, in fact, I mean, if we connect, sir, your lecture with our, initial lectures with Chirag, the English language in India, I mean, we might have that maybe assumption that if we might not have been colonized, the English, the status that we have presently given, the importance given to the English language might not have been that much. It might have been just any other language that is an international language like French. We do not give that importance to French. That is again an international language. But
Hmm.
because we were colonized and English was their language, we give maybe undue importance to that. Maybe, I mean, we can see like that. Okay,
Even
anything? Yes.
this reminds me of UNESCO's idea of celebrating Mother Tongue Day. Because in
Yes.
2019 they were mostly focusing on English, and into 2020 they are focusing, since from 2020 they are focusing more on a mother tongue, uh,
Yes.
regional languages. They are giving importance
Yes.
to it.
Yes, so
Yes,
each
yes,
and
Chirag sir is
every
saying.
language. Yes, Chirag.
Yes,
Yes, the addition. Yes, Chirag.
yeah, that's
So, yes, that is like, I mean, yes, given due importance should be given to each and every language. I mean,
exactly.
yes, we have, I think, Khushbu who wants to ask something. Yes, Khushbu, kindly unmute yourself and ask.
No, ma'am, it might be by mistake or something.
Okay, okay, not an issue. So, do we have any other queries for the day?
Yes, ma'am. May I?
Yes,
Please,
please,
sir.
sir.
Okay, sir, as we talk about the all Indian modern writers, okay, sir, do we also have syllabus in Indian modern theatre? So, will we have any question regarding the Indian modern theatre? Am I audible?
Your voice is little bit low.
Okay, okay. I'll repeat my question, sir. As
Yeah.
we talk about all modern writers, major writers, so sir, I want to know that will we have any question regarding the Indian modern theatre?
That is the part of where I'm still untouched. I mean, I haven't touched that area.
Okay. So maybe you can suggest me. Chirag sir is there. He can suggest us some
Chirag sir
modern.
is there. I think Komal ma'am has worked on drama. She may give her opinion.
No, but
Yes,
I don't have idea regarding this, sir. Even I don't have much idea regarding this.
okay. If I would add up, right, I have done my PhD on British theatre, but obviously, when I just for the sake of knowledge, try to compare the things. Actually, drama is something that is not developed in the recent days. We have the street theater. We have a few specific, groups who are working with these things. But I mean, the development that we can see in poetry, in novel, we are not having that much in India, specifically in this particular genre, that is drama, or converted presentation, that is theater. So we are not much actually ahead in this particular genre.
Hmm.
Okay, we have again a question in the chat box that is from Chirag. Confessional poetry emerged in US and Kamla Das also used this particular genre. So, can we find any particular influence in her poetry?
Mm, no. Why? Because Kamala Das herself was so used to write so powerfully that she used to write her own experiences. Right. That that was she was very bold in her style. It there may be, there may not be. Now, influences, US influence typically, I doubt there won't be, because Kamala Das has been very popular poet, perhaps the first women poet uh, of Indian writing in English to wrote so powerfully that she become a major character poet internationally.
Okay, sir. Now, with this, we call it a day. I mean, this would be considered the last question. And if we have any more queries regarding the same topic, kindly mail us and we will definitely like to just revert you back. At last, thank you very much, Dr. Bhavdeep Chavda, for your quite informative session. That was quite useful and at the same time quite precise and impactful. Pratiksha, would you like to add up something?
No, I just want to tell that, like as Ravindra was asking regarding Indian drama, Girish Karnad and Mahesh Dattani is a well-known playwrights of English in English literature. If Ravindra wants to read,
No, yes, ma'am, I
then
agree with
yes,
you. Actually, there are certain Badal Sarkar was there, Mohan Rakesh was there, Dinbandhu Mitra, Jaisankar Bhojak, Nandira
yes,
Babar.
yes,
Okay, there are
yes.
many writers, but just I want to that Dharam Bhati was there, Girish Karnad, Bhishma
Hmm,
Sahani,
hmm,
Vijay Tendulkar, then
yeah,
Kasiram Kotwal, Mahesh Dattani, as you said. So what
yeah.
I want to know that to whom we should focus on that, which is the major writer of this all. So that's what my question. But it's okay. I got answer from Pratiksha ma'am. Am I right? Hello.
Yes,
Yes,
she
yes.
is.
Okay.
Yes, she is
Yeah, yeah.
Pratiksha. Yes.
Okay. Actually, yeah.
Okay.
So I know about the writer this, but I just want to know focus किस पे डालना है? To whom we should focus more?
See, Ravindra, I think I can tell you one thing.
Of course, sir.
Keeping net in mind, you people should keep three layers in mind. Uh, you focus on canonical writers, their works, and important quotations and other lines, right? Mostly questions are asked from canonical writers, but there are chances that there will be a question from the another layer. Okay, so one cannot surely say that there will be questions from these poets only. This is kind of asking most important questions. I doubt that can be addressed in any way.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Okay, so with this, we finally end up the session. On behalf of Alumni Association, I would like to thank once again Dr. Bhavdeep Chawda for this wonderful session. See you all participants in the next session.